Flosstube, it's Jenny McStitcher. It is Monday, July 1st, 2019. This is Bo. She got 3 weeks bigger, 3 weeks more awesome. She's the best dog. Calm, as you can see, sleepy a lot of the time. Just very, very well behaved, gets along great with the other animals, and she's growing like crazy, as we expected she would. She's off to find a cold vent to sleep on. She's a real air conditioning kind of dog. Must be all that fur. I sort of relate, not to the fur part, but to the over hot part. So it is pretty toasty out. Thank goodness for air conditioning. It's a little too hot for a scarf. So just putting that out there. Okay, so we're at the trailer, as you can see, and it's I brought some stuff up to show you. I brought 5 works in progress. I brought 2 fully finished objects. Yay! I brought 3 previous finishes from my wall. And I brought 1 haul item, just 1 little haul item. And I was going to do the 24 hours of stitching monthly challenge, which is when you take all the letters in 24 and you plan out a pattern for each of those letters, like to represent each of those letters. I had a ton of fun planning that out. I had some fun starting that. I had less fun carrying it on, and I stopped about halfway because I have a hard time putting things down once I get into them. And I loved doing Stitch Mania, and I knew going in that I would have to put the pieces down. But because of the 24 hours one, you could do a minimum amount of stitching. I didn't find I didn't reach the maximum. I just kept stitching them. So all of a sudden it was June 27th or something like that, and I'd only done 5, and I didn't want to squish a bunch into the end of the month, so I just stuck to the 5. So I don't spell 24 with my efforts for the month. I think I don't even spell 20. I don't think I spelled anything. I think I spelled blah, blah, blah. But I had fun with it. I don't know if I am going to sign up for daily or small, frequent whip changing type challenges. I might in the future, but at this particular point, I don't think I will. And I don't think I will primarily because I don't feel like I need the, I never lose my stitching bug, touch wood. I never really lose my stitching bug because I don't like to do anything else. Like if you called me up and asked me to go to a movie, I would say no. If you called me up and said, let's go to your favorite restaurant and I'll pay, I would probably still say no. I would just say no. So I stay home and I stitch, or I come to the trailer and I stitch, or I sit in the backyard and I stitch, or I go to work and I stitch. And that's about it. So I really don't feel like I need that sort of like, if this sounds egotistical, I do apologize. It isn't meant to. It's just the way I operate. It's just I'm full on with it. So yeah, maybe I'm gonna try to find a challenge that would incorporate maybe like 3 or 4 whip changes a month, but maybe not much more than that. Or maybe I'll just try to come up with my own rotation system that sort of works for me. I've never had this many whips, so I guess that's why I'm thinking about it all. I felt at the end of May like, well, what now? I have all these pieces to finish, and my instinct is to just sit down and finish them one at a time. But I think that would be boring for you, and maybe even boring for me. So I am going to try to rotate. I just don't know how yet. So I will show you the 5 pieces that I stitched on this month. So starting with Tiny Modernists, a year of animal fun and frolics. This is the November piece, and I partly chose that because there's an N in 24, and I partially chose it because it's my daughter's birth month. So I love this one. It's a cute little bunny, and this little bunny did not forget his scarf. So there is November, and scarecrow, and a little barn, and some leaves, and a little red bird. I did that almost 100% exactly like it was charted, with a couple of tiny exceptions. One exception is I outlined the bird. It didn't call for outlining, but I thought I might as well. The other little tiny exception is, do you see how in the chart, sort of in the banner there, the yellow goes outside of the back stitch line? I find when I do that, it looks messy. It looks nice in the picture, and it looks nice when other people do it, and I absolutely don't mind the charting this way, but when I do it, I feel like I've stitched outside the lines. So I'm going to try and do this whole series with quarter stitches, half stitches, whatever it takes to keep the color inside the outlines, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's a fun piece. I think I've mentioned this to you already, that I'm stitching this for my baby great niece. She just turned 1. If all goes well, I might be able to give her this for her 2nd birthday, which is in May of 2020. And to do that, I would probably want to finish 1 month every month, but not necessarily the month we're in. Right, so that's that one. Very fun little stitch. Dropped. Okay, so another one I did early in June for the 24-hour challenge was Froth and Bubble, and it's by Long Dog Samplers, and I just love this one. I love the poem, I love the motifs, I love the fabric I'm stitching on. It's picture this plus fabric, Sprite. The color is Sprite. It's kind of like a soft purple. And I am stitching it in such a way as to block in all the motifs and then come back and color them in later, like an adult coloring book. So there we go. Life is mostly Froth and Bubble. This one's a very, very fun stitch. And it has a companion piece. So depending on how this looks when it's all done, I might stitch it too. Third. I'm not putting these out in order that I stitched them in, I don't think. Okay, so this is Simplicity. I picked that because it starts with T. There is Beauty in Simplicity. By Cottage Garden. It's part of the Songbirds Garden series, number 9. And this one was everybody's favorite when I shared my starts of these on my Stitch Mania video. So I did carry on with Simplicity, and I love it. I'm going to carry on with this some more very soon. Simplicity. Oh, it's got a big crease down the center. I'm sorry. Simplicity. So there's that beautiful sort of amber colored house, and it sits on an open daisy, and that daisy is outlined in gray and then stitched in white. So I've barely begun the white part, as you can see, and the word. So there's lots yet to do on that piece, but these do kind of go fast. The bird will take some time, but the flowers are sort of airy and not as much stitching as densely as the bird, I don't think. So hopefully that won't take me too long to do. So that's I think 3, yeah, and 4. Okay, so I've been stitching on my Heaven and Earth design piece, which is decorating the wreath. It's a very small picture, so it'll probably come through blurry, but you get the idea. 2 little mice and a mama papa elf, and they are decorating a wreath, just like the title says. So you'll notice this little mouse is holding a basket full of what I think are holly berries. So I did start in the center for this, and Here are the holly berries right there. So nothing else that's on this page will look in any way, shape, or form like anything. And nor does that, actually. But that's what those are. Those are the holly berries. So my technique, if you can call it that, with Hades is that I just wander around on the page with my needle. I think they call it cross country, but it seems to me that it's even less organized than that. So what I do is I look at the page and I pick a color towards the top, maybe left, and then I just start stitching. And when I'm done sort of like a section, like a natural section, then I just pick another natural section and I stitch that. And as I'm going across, I'm very careful when I count, like 5 times. And then, so when I get to the page edge, then I start going down a little bit, and then I come up and around again to where I start, and then I sort of do the same thing in the middle. So I'm kind of filling in the general gist of the page as I go, and then as I kind of go around again and again in sort of like a spirally type shape, I fill in more and more detail. So I like doing it this way because as you stitch them, they pop into detail. And if you get to a section on the page that you especially like, you can just focus on that area, like whatever, right? Now I did do a big Hade before, and I got page lines in it. So I have worried about page lines enough that what I will do is as I go through the page, I'll just put a few stitches over from the next page. So I always have the page I'm working on plus another page. I haven't been doing that yet with this one, but I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue with this one because I'm doing it just a 10th stitch. I'm not doing the full crosses. I'm doing 2 strands of floss over 1 fabric thread on 32 count fabric. So it's going to be tiny, but it's I don't think that the page lines are going to be distinct like they were in my other one. Famous last words? I hope not. So fingers crossed. But I will feather the edge of the pages before I get too far into it. Anyway, so my final whip for June. I do sort of slightly feel like I'm forgetting something. I might have left something I was working on at work. But anyway, this is all I have for today to show you. So this is my primitive hair Youll Queen, which I love. I bought this at a retreat where the primitive hair designer Isabella was present. She had a little shop set up in her room, and she had a bunch of things on display and up for sale. So I bought this chart. I didn't buy the fabric that she recommended. I bought a bunch of stuff. I did buy some fabric, but I used it for something else. So I chose this Silk Weaver's fabric for this Youll Queen, and I cannot tell you how much I love this fabric. It feels so stable and so soft, but yet it has a lot of oomph to it. So I'm really enjoying it. I think I might buy some more Silk Weaver fabric. I haven't really looked into it yet. I would like to buy some Silk Weaver fabric even in plain colors and try to dye it myself if it's available. But anyway, here's my progress on Youll Queen. So I only have really to finish filling in the variegated bluey gray color of her skirt, and then there's some snow and French knots around here, and then at the bottom there's the words Youll Queen plus a little tiny border. So Youll Queen and then the border. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend, see how in this frame there's a lot of border that is unstitched? I'm going to frame it like that. In fact, I found the frame that I'm going to use for this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of extend the snow to both sides. The frame is not, it's not going to be as high up as this one, so it's going to be a little bit more square-like. But I think it's going to look good as long as I extend the snow into the sides. And I really like this piece. My only I'm not sure thing is that I wondered if her face was a little bit close to the color of the fabric, and if I should possibly outline it. I think maybe no, but maybe I'll try it and see how it looks. Anyway, so that's my fifth WIP, and that's all. These are pretty much all I worked on this month. If I did anything else, it was just a little bit at work on lunches. So the reason I picked this one up yesterday is because I found that frame. And the reason I found that frame is that I took my daughter to a flea market yesterday, a local flea market. I've been meaning to get there for years. I used to go all the time. It is smaller than how I remember it, but I lucked out in the frame department. I've been wanting to do my own framing for some time, and I didn't know where to start really. I like antique looking molding, so I thought a flea market made more sense than, say, like a Value Village or Sally Ann kind of place. So yeah, the flea market. I found a section where they had all kinds of frames just loose. They had no backs on them. They had no hardware on them. They were just the molding stuck together. So I put 5 or 6 on my arm and walked up to the cash register, and they said $10 for all of them, I think. $10 or $15, I forget right now. Either way, it was a steal. So I bought a bunch of frames, and some of them were the right size and some of them weren't. So I'm cutting them down. Rob, I should say, is cutting them down to size in the wood shop outside our house, in the garage, and then remitering the corners and gluing them back together, nailing them back together, whatever. I don't even know. I wasn't even watching. I was busy inside lacing my needlework. No, not lacing. Using lace pins to pin my needlework. So here is my first fully finished object since I started doing Flosstube videos. Are you ready? Ta-da! Okay, so this is the Coverlet Houses by the Scarlet House. I think that's right. The Scarlet House is the designer. Coverlet Houses is the design name. So I bought this at the same needlework convention that I bought the Primitive Hair Youll Queen at. I spent quite some amount of money on that trip. So I bought the chart, and in the shop was called A Stitcher's Garden in Fayetteville. They had this stitched, like a model stitched of this, in a frame that fit it tightly like this one does, no mat. And it wasn't unlike this. It was very similar. I can't say for sure, but I think it was similar to this. So when I saw this frame, I did think it was kind of perfect. It's very, very rustic looking, very, very antique. You can see it's legit antique. It was longer. It was 3 to 4 inches longer, and we chopped the side off and reattached it. It was the right height. I had never mounted my needlework before. It was hard. I'll be honest with you. It took me long enough that I thought, oh God, I'm just going to pay somebody to do this next time. But I'm really glad I did it. I almost think I almost did a perfect job, except I started at the top and then worked sort of opposites. Put a ton, like I put 1,000 pins in, but my U is not quite the same as my O. And if I had compensated for that at the top, it would have thrown the top line out. So, it's not perfect, but, neither would it be if it were an antique, which it looks like. You'll notice it doesn't have any glass, because this is one of those frames that didn't come with anything. I love it without glass. And I've always put glass on my finished objects, but now I'm thinking maybe not. Maybe it's better without the glass. It seems so much more tangible and softer and more inviting without the glass. I don't know it's going to get dusty, and I'm not super, I don't dust a lot. I'm not like, so it'll bug me probably down the road, but I really love the way it looks right now. So that's my first fully finished object. And my second, I did not have to cut this frame down for this. This is from the same retreat. This is Wicked Doll by Primitive Hair. Now this was meant to be a bag I believe. It was a doll and an apron and a bag. And I got all the fabric to make the doll and the apron, and I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I'm not a great seamstress, and my sewing machine's dusty, and I don't even know where it is. But I did want to put the piece up because I liked that retreat so much, and I wanted to have a reminder of it on the wall. So for this finish, the frame already fit. I held it up to it, and I thought that's dead perfect. So I took matte. I sort of did a Vanna Pfeiffer technique, but because this was meant to be sewn into something else, it didn't have the 2 to 3 inch margin that normally you would have around your stitching. So the top and the bottom were very, very narrow, like not even an inch. It might have been half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. So I sprayed glue onto the mat board and then put a puffy stuff. I put puffy stuff on the mat, and then I placed the stitching on top of that, centered it, and then flipped it over and glued with tacky glue the excess fabric from this side and this side, and also from the top and the bottom. But as I said, it was seriously a small amount that got turned over. So, but it turned out really nice. I love that, and I thought that frame, it just sort of has like a smoky, woodsy sort of like haunted feel too, like ooh, right? I don't know. Anyway, so I'm happy with my 2 finishes. They look great. They look great on the wall, and I will show you my stitching wall. While I was on my stitching wall putting those up, I thought I'd bring some down from my stitching wall. So I'm going to show you 3 long finish items, smaller. They were easy to lug here because they're so small, and then I'm going to tell you a sad story. I'm going to lead in from these 3 former finishes to a sad story. And this is the first. This one, maybe you've seen this before. This is Bright Crimson Fire by Victoria Sampler. So this is hard anger, and it is hard. They don't call it hard anger for nothing. But I'm not super jazzed about hard anger. I don't feel any desire to continue on with it. But I did have a ton of fun doing this. This took 10 days to stitch, if you can believe it, because it's only a couple, like maybe, like I don't know, like 2.5 inches wide. So the bands are very narrow, and the only one that really took any length of time was the bottom one, and maybe the top one. So, 10 days. When I had this professionally, obviously framed, the brilliant framer, who I can't seem to find her anymore. Her name was Roseanne. She worked in Hamilton. She was so good. She suggested, I don't know if you can see it, she suggested to have that mounted on a gold foam core. And it shows gold through, can you see that? It shows gold through the hard hanger, through the pulled threads. I thought that was brilliant, because then it just adds to the shimmer of the piece. So if you ever finish one of these and you're getting it framed, keep that in mind. That's a very effective technique. And she didn't know hard hanger from easy danger, so she just made that up herself. Just a good eye, smart woman. There are 3 others in this series. They represent, or maybe 4, they represent the elements. I don't know how many elements there are, but there's earth, I think, which is green, water, blue, air, white or silver, I forget. I only really felt compelled to do this one because I love red. I just love this color, and it kind of looks nice at Christmas time, and it looks nice today for Canada Day, right? Red and white, happy Canada Day. So that's 15 years. That's a 15-year-old finish. Also, at least 15 years old, I think, is this one. My apologies, I have no idea who designed this, what it's called, or even really 100% when I stitched it. I stitched this for my niece. She is 31 or 32 years old now. 32. And she, when she moved out, she didn't take it with her. So I still have it. And I will give it back to her. I don't think she remembers that I have, so maybe she'll see this video and say, oh geez, give me that back, and I will, because it's hers. I wondered if I should take the glass off this, since I liked glass off so much. There's a little frog here, and that frog is being pressed by the glass into the fabric. So there's a bit of a dent there. You can't really see that, but you can see it if you look at it closely, like in person. So that might be a good candidate to have glass removed, because as I was saying, I really like the way no glass looks. So that's my second former finish. And my third former finish is also my unicorn. So this is Cathy Livingstone, I believe her name is. Cathy Livingstone designed these squirrely bird and bunny seasonal round stitches. They're not from her book, which is about the seasons. They are separate leaflets that were put out a long time ago, like I'm gonna say 25 years ago. I love this. It's got blended needles. It's got tons of detail. It's gorgeous. I only finished the one. I never did see or have the other 3 leaflets. I've looked for them from time to time when I think of it, like maybe once a year I do a quick search. I've never seen them. They're long out of print, I believe. So this finished piece brings me to my sad story. The reason that this is so near and dear to my heart is because this is a combined stitching effort between myself and my sister. My sister started the pumpkin. Well, she did this part, and then she moved up along this path. She stitched here, and she stitched part of the barn. And then she died, and she left it unfinished. And my sister was an amazing and prolific stitcher. And she stitched she had many works in progress at a time. And so she taught me to stitch maybe in 1993. And I always stitched one thing, finished it, one more thing, finished it, one more thing, finished it. But she would have a winter stitch, she would have a stitch for the hospital, she would have a stitch she just had stitches all over the place. So when she passed away in the year 2000, January of 2000, I went over to her house and I kind of barged in. I'll be honest with you, I barged in and I went upstairs to her sewing room and I took everything that wasn't nailed down. Actually, no, I took some things that were nailed down. I took that huge wooden box that I normally sit in front of. That was from my sister's sewing room. And I took all of her unfinished pieces. I took a couple of her finished pieces, but those wound up with my mom. I took all of her floss, all of her little scissors, her key fobs, every single thing that I could get my hands on. I took it. I took it because her daughter was very young and I didn't think she would appreciate or know what she had. And as it turns out, Amy's not a stitcher. I took it all. So originally, I don't know what I was thinking. I'll be honest. Originally, I didn't think, I'm going to take this all and finish it for her. Originally, I just thought I'm going to take all this so it doesn't wind up in a garage sale. That was my 100% of my motivation. I just wanted to protect it from what happens next. And who knows what happens next, right, with your stuff? So, I just took it. And then I had it in my little house where I was living at the time, and I just started stitching. My sister kept all of her unfinished pieces in those like cookie tins, and so my hands would shake when I would take the lid off of each thing, because inside felt like such treasures because she had stitched them. She stitched in hand, so even the way the fabric was folded, it felt very emotional for me to be touching it. But I put it all on hoops and stretched it all out and tried to make them my own. And I'm not gonna cry. So I managed to stitch everything she ever started. And so this is one of those. And there are many more. And I think what I would really like to do is when I make my 6th Flosstube video, which should be within the next few weeks, I would like to go over to my mom's house, but I would like to ask her not to be home because it's hard to do a Flosstube video when there's people around. Maybe even in this case, especially if my mom was around. So what I'd like to do is take over her space, her sewing room, for half an hour or an hour, and just show you some of my sister's other pieces, some of the ones she did herself and some of the ones that I finished for her and some of the ones that we did together, because each of those things is represented at my mom's house. Also, and the reason why I'm telling you this is because I don't know if any of you have ever felt imposter syndrome, where you sort of feel like you're in somebody else's business or in somebody else's role. I guess when I first started finishing my sister's stitching, because I was never the kind of stitcher that she was, I wasn't even like a fraction of it, I sort of felt like an imposter. I sort of felt like I was riding on her thing. Over the years I've gotten over that because it's clearly my thing now too. But I did sort of feel like that. I felt like to share with other Flosstubers my stitching story. I couldn't do that without telling you a little bit about my sister. And the most important part of it was that my sister, her name was Allie. She was a teddy bear maker. She did do stitching all the time. She was serious about it. But for her business, to make money, she had a teddy bear making business. She was incorporated and everything, and she called herself Allie McBear. And so when I made an Instagram account, it just popped into my head that I could be Jenny McStitcher, because we were Allie and Jenny. So yeah, Allie McBear is how I came up with Jenny McStitcher. So also, because I didn't mention that, I just sort of presented that, it slightly felt like I was trespassing on my sister's territory without giving her any kind of credit. So she deserves the credit. She deserves the credit for teaching me, for leaving me the gifts of her unfinished projects so that I could ramp up my stitching and get obsessive the way she was. And I owe her all the thanks too for all the pieces that she inadvertently gave me, because she had cystic fibrosis. She was never going to live forever because of when she was born. She was born in the early 60s when having CF now is different from having CF then. And so I don't want to, if anybody knows anybody with it, I don't want to freak you out, but back then it was a different situation than it is now. So so the fact that she left all those projects, the fact that she had a mentality where she didn't need to finish what she started, sort of, to me, I've justified it by thinking that she did those, she started those things on purpose to give me something to do when she was gone. So do them I did. So that's my sad story. I hope you don't mind my sharing it. I did manage to get through without crying, but I felt a little sting of a couple of the tears. She's my big sister, and it just didn't feel right not to mention her. So next Flosstube video, you should see me in my mother's absolutely stunning sewing room with a bunch of teddy bears and a bunch of stitching. And again, I will show you her stuff, but I'll try not to cry. Anyway, so this past few weeks saw my son home for a visit. I mentioned that he came home. He lives in Montreal. He was home for, I guess, about 2 weeks in total. We had a ton of fun. My daughter is in a program that goes all year round, so she's kind of like absent this summer in a way. She's working and going to school, but she did have a bit of time off. So we did some fun stuff. We went on some road trips. We went shopping together. We did all kinds of fun stuff. And when I took my son to the summer camp where he's going to be working, I managed to hit a shop that I'd never been to before. The shop is called Hedgehog Stitchery. It's not a primarily cross-stitch supply store, but it does have a cross-stitch supply section. And if it were in my city, I would be thrilled because it had fabric you can cut off the bolt. It had all the DMC colors plus extras. It had pearl cotton. It had those nice new DMC colors. I think it might have had some non-DMC floss too, some specialty ones, but I can't think of what they were just now. It had a very nice selection of charts for sale, and it had some great cross-stitch books. It was in Whitby, Ontario. I'd never really been to Whitby. I've driven through it 100 times, but I've never stopped and gotten out of the car. And that is a gorgeous city. So I don't know if I would go to Hedgehog Stitchery. Like, I wouldn't probably drive all the way there just to go there, because it's a couple of hours away, and I have stores that are closer that are strictly cross-stitch and probably have more stuff. But that being said, if I'm anywhere near Whitby, I'm going to stop there again, because it had a great vibe in that shop, and they had wool and all kinds of other stuff too for creative types. Anyway, I did buy one pattern. I'm not a huge haul person. I have been on occasion, but not lately. But I did see this piece that I could not resist. It's called Praiseworthy Stitches, is the design company, which I'd never heard of them, and it's called The Simple Gifts Hope. I love it. So I have a piece of fabric I showed you in another video that's almost identical to this color, and I'm using half of it for Cathy Barrick's needlework, and I've only been filling in the black so far. I hadn't decided on the other colors, and now that I'm looking at this bright silvery white color, I think I might use that color for the accent pieces in Cathy Barrick's and stitch this exactly as it's charted and have those two pieces as kind of complementary pieces, because they sort of have, they're different, but I think they would look great together. So that was fun. That was just a couple of days ago, and but I'm not going to start it anytime soon because I have a lot of stuff to do. So I also wanted to mention how much fun it's been to look at little video clips from StitchCon, which was going on this past weekend. It looks like it was so much fun. I hope that one day I'll be able to join the fun. I did meet somebody at a day retreat here in Hamilton, and she was going to StitchCon. So I hope, if you're watching, Nancy, I hope you had an amazing time. I hope your manicure and your pedicure shone as brightly as you do. I just think 400 stitchers all in one place? It sounds crazy and fun. I would love to do something like that. The retreats I've been to have been much smaller scale than that, but I've been to three retreats. One was a sleepover retreat, and two were not. Super fun. I also wanted to mention a new subscriber of mine, Amy Loves Toads. I love Amy Loves Toads videos. I love her stitching and her vibe, and I just think she's great. Anyway, one of her videos, very recent videos, she mentioned an audiobook. I don't know if she fully recommended it, but she mentioned that she was listening to the Crawdad Sing audiobook, and I love audiobooks. I listen to them all the time when I'm stitching. So I downloaded that, and I was just starting to listen to it, and then I got the notification that Amy had subscribed to my channel, which was a crazy coincidence and wild, and it really kind of made my day. So I thought I'd shout that out. It's just a crazy little, the same time. It was wild. Anyway, so thank you again for listening to my sad story, for having patience. I'm almost at 40 minutes, so I'm going to keep it under 40 minutes this time. Anyway, happy Canada Day, happy 4th of July, which is around the corner. Happy whatever your days are bringing, and happy stitching. I will see you in a few weeks, probably 2 or 3. Thank you so much, and take care. Bye now.